there with children and families, and it's just been a wonderful experience. So I think that's all very good. We have 29 works of art that were juried into the show from 19 NAWA SC artists. And it's great because it's actually the entire state. We've got members that are exhibiting in this exhibit from Myrtle Beach all the way down to Hilton Head, and from Charleston all the way west to Lancaster. So you know, it's the whole South Carolina group is participating in this. So now you know the story, and I'm glad all you were able to participate. And my next thing now is, you know, obviously it's in cooperation with the Pat Conroy Literary Center and the Coastal Discovery Museum. But now I'm going to ask Jonathan, who's the director of the Literary Center, to speak to us and tell us a little bit about why he wanted this exhibit and why he thinks it will benefit the Literary Center in the whole. So go for it, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you all for your incredible work with this project. Greetings from here in Beaufort from our nonprofit Pat Conroy Literary Center. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here on Zoom, on camera with you all this afternoon. And more than that, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to get this opportunity to partner with the National Association of Women Artists and with our friends at the Coastal Discovery Museum again for what has become this incredible Inspirational Journeys Small Chapters exhibition, which, as I said in our pre-show, I look forward to seeing in about 2 weeks when I get to come over there and visit it in person. When the NAWA board came here to our Conroy Center and was first in touch about the possibilities of what has since become this remarkable exhibition, I was immediately drawn to this possibility because of how important the arts and visual arts in particular had been to Mr. Conroy and still are to us here at the Conroy Center. Although our museum is by no means an art gallery, I am in fact surrounded by visual artworks right now, including this beautiful piece behind me. This is by a portrait artist here in Beaufort named Susan Graber. This is our official portrait of Pat Conroy. But on the walls surrounding me right now, there are pieces by an incredible group of artists who all intersected with Pat Conroy's story at various points, and many of them still do. And those include pieces by Pat's daughter, children's book artist Melissa Conroy, Pat's longtime friend and book cover artist Wendell Miner, the Japanese-born mural artist Aki Kato, who makes his home here in Beaufort now, Charleston author and artist Nicole Seitz, teenage journal artist Anthony Johnson, and the even younger artists and authors of our Camp Conroy summer camp, including our own Beaufort High School student intern, Holland Perriman, and most recently, an incredible piece by now artist Candace Lovely, which is on display on the wall opposite from where I'm sitting right now, called Beach Music on Skull Creek, which we just added to the exhibition a couple of weeks ago. Although Pat Conroy was not an artist in the same sense that all of you are, I think we can all agree that Pat had the remarkable ability to paint with words. And I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't share just a couple of those words with you this afternoon. So here's a very quick passage from the prologue to The Prince of Tides that I suspect many of you are familiar with, and some of you may have even been inspired by in your own work. To describe growing up in the low country of South Carolina, I would have to take you to the marsh on a spring day, flush the great blue heron from its silent occupation, scatter marsh hens as we sink to our knees in the mud, open you an oyster with a pocket knife and feed it to you from the shell and say, there, that taste, that's the taste of my childhood. That is a man who is painting with prose, and I so wish he could get to see your work because he would be blown away by it, as I'm sure all of the visitors will be as well. So on behalf of our Conroy Center, I send our heartfelt gratitude and congratulations to all of the artists who participated in this exhibit. I'm beyond grateful to all of you that you've been so inspired by Mr. Conroy's work and his teachings and the world he described to create your own pieces in response to that. And it's a great pleasure, again, to get to work with our friends at the Coastal Discovery Museum, the Crescendo Art Festival, and to have this be part of our own Pat Conroy Literary Festival this year as well. So by way of a very quick commercial announcement, thank you for posting the slide, Sandy. We have another artist participating in the Conroy Fest, and I just want to quickly mention that also as part of our festival in Crescendo, we'll be hosting a free virtual conversation with portrait artist Mary White from Charleston on Thursday evening, November 5th, 6 p.m. And I hope you'll come back and join us online for that as well. And in the meantime, again, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you all this afternoon. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now a little word from Natalie about the Coastal Discovery Museum, and something you might not know, because I didn't know this, not being from Hilton Head, that last year Natalie was actually the chairperson of Crescendo. Unfortunately, this year we didn't have a Crescendo, but you know, hopefully we'll be able to do something in the future and working with a Crescendo. So Natalie.
Yes, it seemed as though I was chair of Crescendo in perpetuity. It seemed to be one of those positions that kept going and going. But it really, I'm so pleased that we were able to work this out, to have this exhibit at the Coastal Discovery Museum. And it's always a pleasure working with the Pat Conroy Center and with Jonathan. We've done a lot of fun things together, and really have become partners in a lot of different ways. So this was an unexpected last minute partnership, but glad that we could assist. And I will also mention that, as Sandy said, our visitation has been pretty steady this last few weeks. I think a lot of our folks that come and spend the fall and the winter are still visiting, and I'm pleased to let you know that when I walked in the space earlier this week, I found people actually reading the exhibit labels, and that is such a pleasure to see. So the mission of the Coastal Discovery Museum is to inspire people to care for the Low Country, and I don't think there would be any other author and member of our community other than Pat Conroy, who I think inspired a love and appreciation for the Low Country through his writings. And Jonathan, I'm so glad you read that passage. It's one of my favorites. The last time I saw Pat, I did purchase another copy of The Water is Wide to have it signed. And I also, just remember when I was away from the Low Country reading, his love of it through his books always made me feel like I was at home. So I'm so pleased that all of the artists, have taken his experiences in life or his words on the page and created these great pieces of art. I'm particularly just thrilled that it's, the small chapters, I think is a great little flavor of what you all have to offer. And I'm very pleased that we have this relationship now. I will mention that I was with Suzanne Fiorino this week as well, talking about our exhibit in January. And so you'll be hearing more about that. So that's the last of the commercials that I have. And I just wanted to thank you for including me. I will stay on as long as I can today, but I may not be able to stay till the very end. But certainly if any of you are making plans to come and see the exhibit in person, Sandy knows how to reach me, and I'd be happy to come over and say hello. So thank you.
And I have to thank Natalie, because once the judge gave us the winners, Natalie had to hang all the ribbons on them. So the ribbons are on every piece that received an award, so that as the audience goes through, they can actually see which ones are the winners. So it's kind of fun that way too. So thank you for doing that, Natalie. Okay, speaking of the judge, whoops, I'm sorry. Okay, so this, let me jump back here. So these are all the images, or most of the images that are in the show. So it was a very diverse show. You can kind of see, looking here, a little of everything, from photography to pastel to oil to watercolor. The only thing, we didn't have any 3Ds, but other than that, all 2D works. And we'll move on. And this was the judge, Louanne LaRoche. Louanne could not be with us today, but you can read that, but I'm just going to give you a little summary. She was the owner and the director of the Red Piano Gallery, one of the top galleries on Hilton Head. And she also founded the Red Piano 2 on St. Helena, which is more of the Gullah art exhibit area. She was a board member of the Penn Center community for many years, and she spearheaded fundraising for Penn Center and the Gullah community. She authored a book on Sam Doyle, who was one of the folk artists of the Gullahs. And she's also authored several essays on art in different national publications. Her work is at the Four Corners Gallery in Bluffton, and I know on Hilton Head somewhere, but I'm not positive where it is. So this is what she said about the exhibit. Thank you for entrusting me with the honor of judging this thoughtful representation of artwork honoring Pat Conroy. I chose my selections based on 1, skill of representation, 2, creativity, and 3, how the individual artworks channeled the spirit of Pat Conroy's writing. The decision was difficult. I gave much thought and revisited the images several times. I weighed each piece using my own sensibilities and the criteria mentioned above. As an artist, use of color, media, composition, and message conveyed is of primary importance to me. I responded to making my selections to the best of my ability and subjective opinion, of course. I wish everyone a safe, creative, and healthy months ahead. I know the visitors of the Coastal Discovery Museum will find great value in your exhibition. Kindest regards, Luann. And Luann chose not to take an honorarium from us for doing this for us, but she asked us to make a donation to the Coastal Discovery Museum in her honor. So we will be doing that at our next board meeting. So on to the thing you've been waiting for, the winners. And we're going to start obviously from the bottom to the top. Not that this is a bottom piece at all, but we're starting with the honorable mention and working up to the first place. And then everyone, all the other images in the exhibit will be shown and we can all talk about them. Oh, sorry. This is honorable mention, Rhythm by Juliana Kim. And I know Juliana is here with us. I see her smiling face. And Juliana submitted 2 pieces. And her other piece we'll talk about a little bit later. But Juliana, tell us a little bit about Rhythm and how this fits in and how you created this, because it's a really great mixed media piece.
Well, this was part of a series I did for the Gullah Show, which is every February at the Art League of Hilton Head within the Art Center, Coastal Art Center. And so one of the areas is dance and music that the Gullah do so well. And so when you see them working on the drums, I took a photo and then I did a photo transfer onto the canvas and then tried to make it look like the top of a leather drum. And I'm excited. I'm pleased that you included that.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Juliana? Okay.
That's lovely, and congratulations.
Okay.
Thank you, Melinda.
The second honorable mention is Morning on the Bay by Sandy Dimke. So this image, I decided to submit. I did it prior. My whole idea when we talked with Jonathan, I was so inspired back last January. I was going to go to Defusky and do all this great stuff at the schoolhouse, and I had all these grandiose plans, and then COVID started and I couldn't get over there for the amount of time I needed. So I had to look to see what I had that I felt imparted something of Pat Conroy. And this picture to me is a lifeboat. It's his lifeboat that he was giving to the students on Defusky. He saw them imprisoned in their island by their circumstances and by their birth. And the lifeboat is kind of the knowledge and the experience of the outside world that he gives them, and encourages them to, have a better life than what they have and have a better future. So that was my thoughts in using Morning on the Bay.
That is beautiful, Sandy.
you.
Wonderful,
I mean,
Sandy.
It
It's
is
lovely.
it's poetic.
printed on metal. I
Wow.
decided I wanted it to jump out. I didn't just want it on photographic paper and framed. I wanted it to have as much metallic feeling as possible. So I actually printed it, had it printed on metal. So it's a square 12 by 12 little piece of metal. So
Good plan.
Nice job.
the third place winner
Oh,
is The Blackboard by Debbie Kelly. And Debbie, I know, is here. And I saw this picture in real life and absolutely loved it. And I know that the judge actually noticed it on the screen, not on the screen, I'm sorry, on the, when she came to visit us while we were not hanging it yet, while we were still taking the works in, and it caught her eye, and she looked at it and she said, "Oh, I can't wait to see that one on the wall." So obviously when she saw it on the wall, she actually loved it even more. So Debbie, why don't you tell us a little bit about how the Blackboard fits in, because it's very cool.
Well, I was trying to think of something that depicted Pat Conroy's life and his love for the written word. And I said, oh, a blackboard. He was a teacher, throw some letters and numbers on the blackboard. And then to connect it a little bit better, I said, I'm going to reflect his life in these letters and the numbers. So his birth year and his year of death are in there, and his last name. And I thought, well, this is a good way to depict his life, his love of education, his love of the written word, and tie those things together, and his continuing support of the teaching profession. So that's kind of where that came from.
And this is a pastel, correct? This is pastel?
Yes, pastel.
it's very effective. Wow, blows me away.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the second place winner is Rustic Mansion by Joanna Biondolillo. Joanna is on our board. I can hopefully see her here. I'm not getting her. Joanna, can you speak?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Rustic Mansion was in a grouping of images, and to me, it just seemed as though a house does not stand if there is neglect and abuse. And, Pat Conroy's life was filled with sadness. This reflected to me, a gentleman whose life literally was crumbling, and he had to find a way out, and he did it beautifully. And his writing is eloquent and, takes you to another place. I just see that, and I think no one's house stands when there is turmoil. The people don't make it out. Two of his siblings unfortunately committed suicide. And I just looked at that and I thought, yeah, what a great example of what happens when there is the absence of care and love and nurturing.
Lovely thought. Lovely thought.
Thank you, Joanna. And drum roll, our first place winner is Alpha Beta by Fran Gardner.
Oh, beans.
Oh, well, I am delighted. Thank you all. I'm sitting here with my mask on because I'm at school, and there's some other people in here, but I'll take it off while I am talking about this piece. Oh, y'all, thank you so much. I'm thrilled. When I was putting together my entry for this show and for the one at the Vendu, I was thinking a lot about Pat Conroy, who was actually a friend of my sister's. So I had, some personal stories from her. But my thoughts, my direct experience with Pat Conroy is through his books. The one that stands out for me is The Prince of Tides. And the reason that book stands out is because I thought he handled the trauma of Savannah and Tom so beautifully, so elegantly, and what I think is probably very realistically. His descriptions are without compare. his handling of those two characters I thought was just lovely. So when I thought about what my work, if you drew a Venn diagram of Pat Conroy and Fran Gardner and what would be the intersection there, the intersection for me is he creates rich and complex imagery in the narrative to tell the story. As an artist, I create rich and complex imagery to tell a story. So we're doing the same thing, but our products are different. And this piece specifically, titled Alpha Beta, you know, we wouldn't have his novels if we didn't have the alphabet. And this is homage to our alphabet and how it is the foundation for what we do as artists and as writers. So I think we do have a little overlap in our Venn diagram, and that's where it resides for me. I'm delighted. Thank you all.
Thank you, Fran.
Congratulations, Fran.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Gail Ray. Kate, I can't see who the participants are on my end. Can you see if Gail is here?
See,
Gail, are you here?
she is not here.
Okay, so Gail's artist statement said, Low Country Long Boy, which is the one on the left, on the right, I'm sorry, is depicted in Pat Conroy's description of the Low Country marshland in The Prince of Tides. Once you experience the crackling and the eating of an oyster right out of the marsh, you understand the Low Country. I guess that was probably a quote from Pat. And she said, the other part is a quote, to describe our growing up in the Low Country, I would have to take you into the marsh on a spring day, flush the great blue heron from its silent occupation, scatter marsh hens as we sink to our knees in the mud, open you an oyster with a pocket knife and feed it to you from a shell and say, there, that taste, that's the taste of my childhood. So those are two of Gail Ray's pieces of art.
Very nice.
Thank you. The next one is, and it's another person, unfortunately, Karen could not be here. She was planning on it, but she did have a conflict that she couldn't get out of. Karen said, although the gentleman captured in the photograph is walking through the circular congregational church, which is north of Broad, he could easily have been one of the many characters cast in Pat Conroy's South of Broad book. Saint or sinner, he walks in deep thought through the church's graveyard, possibly looking for forgiveness, for answers, or simply to escape. Somewhere between this north of Broad church and the depicted neighborhoods in south of Broad is another of Pat Conroy's connection to his alma mater, the Citadel, Pat's presence in the Holy City. In the other one, I know I don't have that in front of me, but it is a depiction of a plantation here in Beaufort County that Karen felt was a very welcoming look, and she thought that it gave an introduction to the Low Country that Pat Conroy always loved. So that was her take on those two. Those are both photographs from Karen Renshaw.
Yeah.
Okay, Penny is here. So Penny has two of these abstracts, A Magical Garden and Demon Within. So Penny, talk to us about this.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. When I was thinking about Pat Conroy, these two are like a yin and a yang. One, the demons within, really deal with all the stuff that we have inside us. He had a very difficult relationship with his family, a lot of painful experiences growing up, and this was, to me, a depiction of all of that. The next one, which was Magical Garden, is really the exact opposite. Trying to find that place of peace, finding that just place where you can just be yourself and really just let it all hang out. The quote that I pulled for Pat Conroy was, I don't know why it is that I've always been happier thinking of somewhere that I've been or wanted to go than where I am at the time. I find it difficult to be happy in the present. So that quote really related to these two pieces together for me.
The magical garden to me looks like a ship, a huge ship with water underneath it, like he wanted to get on a ship and go somewhere. I love them. I love them both.
Once again, I was playing with color. I was playing with shapes. To me, it was just a happy place. And I just had a really good time doing it. So.
We also hung these two together in the exhibit because
Nice.
they were so complementary to each other. So
Very beautiful.
the next one is Mary Ann Stillwagon, South of Broad and Rainbow Row. Mary Ann's husband passed away within this last month, and Mary Ann went back up to New Hampshire. She's a snowbird down in the Low Country. So she asked me to read her statement for her. Pat Conroy's ability to write honestly and from the heart has always fascinated me, but his book South of Broad made a huge impression on me. The characters that unfolded, as well as the images of Charleston and the Low Country, are just amazing. Write about what you know is the advice well given, and Mr. Conroy always had that unique ability to immerse the readers totally into the story he was telling just for that reason. My hope is that the paintings I have created are able to give the viewer a small glimpse into that piece of Pat Conroy's Charleston, South Carolina. And I believe these are both acrylic. So.
Lovely. And you said her husband just died within the month?
Yes, her husband just died within the last month.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
He had been quite ill.
He had been
a long time.
okay.
So
maybe a blessing.
Okay. Now we have Pat's Pickled Shrimp and The Water is Wide. Both of these are by Joan Eckhart, and Joan and Karen Gottschall, whose picture will be coming up soon too. They're our newest members in 2020. So Joan, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I think, the newest member because I just received the information that I've been accepted. So the one on the left, I'll start with, that's Pat's Pickled Shrimp. That's a little bit of whimsy. And we have in our house the cookbook Pat Conroy created, and I'm just going to read what he says about shrimp. And that's why I have created this image of shrimp. When a good friend dies, I take 2 pounds of shrimp for the mourners. When a great friend dies, I go to 5 pounds. When I die, I fully expect all the shrimp in Beaufort to be pickled that day. And when he died, I'm not sure that all of the pickled shrimp was produced, but this is our little portion of it. We actually love this recipe. People look at it and say, well, what the heck is it? Well, it's 2 shrimp on their side, and it's a side view of the pickled shrimp, but I recommend this recipe to anyone who, if you want it, just contact me. The other one though is a photograph that I took on, actually, I wish I had been able to get over to Dalfusky, just as Sandy said, but this was actually taken at the Fripp Inlet. And if you go on a paddle out to the Fripp Inlet, you'll know that you can walk on the sand. And then if you see the little line of white on the bottom, right about in the 1/3 of the way up, that is the ocean. And it represents to me the water is wide. And, you know, in the water is wide, he went over to Dalfusky, and of course, others have already spoken about their inspiration for what he did for the kids there on that island. And but this represented to me the kind of water he had to cross to get to Dalfusky. And it was it's an inspiration. It was a beautiful day, and I'm happy to be a part of this exhibit. Thank you.
The next one is one of our newest members of our South Carolina chapter. This is Mary Jean Hishima Jacobs. I have on my on my computer screen here her pronunciation. It's H-I, and then S-H-E is the accent, and Ma. It's a Native American name that the Cherokee Indians gave her. So this is what she said. It was very simple and to the point. I am a portrait painter commemorating strong women. Pat Conroy had a deep affinity and tremendous respect for strong women. These are them. Okay. Our next one is Melinda Welker, Low Country Tapestry.
Thank you, Sandy, and forgive my voice. I have allergies. I'm not COVID related whatsoever. I had the opportunity to meet Pat Conroy at a Hilton Head Women's Luncheon and found him to be such a gentle man in nature, but so powerful in his affection for the Low Country. And I found a statement in his writing that aligns beautifully with how I view my photography. Pat Conroy remarked that the shining glory of the Low Country is the central metaphor of my writing life. And like Conroy, I also find the Low Country sprawling live oaks, marshes, and the wildlife that's in those marshes act as a muse for my artistic inspiration. So in my photograph, this stately great egret perched in the majestic live oak epitomizes the wildlife and nature in the Low Country to me.
Thank you, Melinda.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful image.
It is
Thank you.
stunning.
Thank you very much. Sorry for my froggy voice.
Karen Gottschall is next, Where I Was Meant to Be. Another beautiful photograph. Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, Pat Conroy's literature is just filled with references to trying to find a sense of place, a sense of belonging, and a sense of home. And I think that is maybe best illustrated by a quote from the Prince of Tides, that after a certain exchange, he says, "I had come to the place where I was meant to be." And when I took this image and saw this solitary boat in the middle of the marsh at the end of a beautiful Low Country day, I could see any of us who love this Low Country, and Pat Conroy as well, picturing ourselves in that boat, just enjoying the end of the day. And to me, part of that challenge with his words was finding a way to convey the vastness of his feeling in a 12 by 12 square. And to me, seeing that boat and then seeing the expansiveness of the marsh beyond that just kind of epitomized that for me. So that is how I created that picture.
Very nice.
Remarkable
I
image.
recognize that, Karen.
Do you, Joan?
I do.
Joan and I live very close to each other. That's taken actually across the causeway, leaving Kalawasi Island. So she should know that well, as should Melinda, I imagine.
I was going to say, is that boat still there?
No,
Oh,
and I don't know where it's gone.
I think it left in the last hurricane.
Could be.
Yeah.
Oops, I seem to be stuck here.
It's a good place to be
We'll
stuck.
only be able to see Karen Gottschall's.
Who wouldn't be stuck on? Nice.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
It reminds me when he got stuck on the sandbar. That part in Water is Wide.
Oh, yeah. That happens a lot.
Hopefully it will continue to run smoothly. We have Isolation by Susan Hammond. And for those of you who don't know Susan, Susan is was the executive director of NAWA in New York City. She's currently retired from that position, but she agreed to take on the South Carolina chapter as the liaison between us and the board. So Susan is at our board meetings and has been extremely helpful in making our transition very smooth. So,
and that's why we're happy to see Joan in this show, because of what she had to go through to become a member. But I enjoy the South Carolina chapter, and I am happy to be a part of it. Researching Pat Conroy was kind of interesting to me, and I was rather impressed by his struggle with his father when he was a young man. I'm also impressed with how the boat in some of our images depict isolation and depression and solitude and aloneness, because I felt because of his relationship with his father, he must have felt that aloneness and some of those feelings as a youth, and in turn grew up and was remarkable in his way of dealing with it. But that when I saw this image that I had, I thought of him as a young person and the struggles that he had gone through, and that was my depiction of what his emotions were like. I think we can all relate to that at different times in our life, but that was my feeling.
It's
It's lovely.
interesting to me that we have several images that have included a boat,
Right. Yeah.
Right.
including Santa's winter.
Maybe we should all go on a cruise or something.
Very beautiful, Susan.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
The next one is Aura of Charleston by Mary Steffen.
Hi, thank you.
And you all should know the name Mary Steffen if you sent in your checks.
Yes.
Join
Our treasurer.
our chapter, because Mary is our wondrous treasurer.
Yep. So thank you for all that have sent in your membership dues. You're helping me along. So this painting was inspired partly by my first visit to Charleston. I haven't lived here all that long, but something that I've read in A Low Country Heart by Pat Conroy. I like to read about why writers write and why artists paint like their own personal point. And he had a line in the Low Country Heart that said, "I've come to that point in my life when my memories seem as
12, 2, 3, 9, 3, 4, 1, 4, 8, 0, 9.
So, and I really relate to that because I'm at that point where I'm not working anymore. So I think back on the past and I'm thinking what I'm doing now, and I kind of combined them both. So for me, this was a combination of my memories of my visit to Charleston for the first time. And I was so overwhelmed by the architecture, the colors, the flowers, and the walkways and the trees, and just walking down, seeing people enjoying it. So I brought all that together in one piece, which was a little challenging, and I hadn't done architecture in a long time. So, and to work 12 by 12 for me is really tough. I paint large. So this was like a triple challenge, get it all in there in this little bit of space, but I had fun doing it. And that's where it came from.
Mary, would you read the quote again, please?
Sure.
It too. I'd like to hear it again.
Sure. I've come to that point in my life when my memories seem as important as the life I'm now leading.
Very, very accurate for your painting.
Thank you. The book is wonderful to read about why he wrote and how he got, all he did to me was just so inspiring. I couldn't put it down. I think I read it front to back within like one night. I couldn't stop reading it.
Mary, can I ask, where are you from before you came to Charleston?
North Jersey.
Okay, so quite a difference in architecture for sure.
Yeah, so now I live in Little River. So I've only been to Charleston a couple times. I haven't lived here that long. So
well, welcome.
Once COVID's over, I'm coming back.
Okay, the next one is Susan Irish's, and I think I mentioned before Susan came on board, Susan is our membership chairperson for the board, so she'll probably be contacting you and others, but the Prince of Tides is 6 panels, and Susan very nicely gave us a schematic on how to hang these pieces, and in theory, it was really good, but in practicality, we were tearing our hair out. But it hung well, it looks good, and Susan will be, and I will mention this later, I do have pictures of all your work from the exhibit, and I'll be sending them to all of you who can't make it down to Hilton Head, but Susan's did end up looking really good. But Karen Gottschall and I hung the exhibit, and Karen commented that if we decided to hang hers first, get it out of the way, do it first. And we know afterwards, we said, if we had tried to do this at 10 of 3 when we were trying to leave as the last one, there's no way. We'd probably still be there hanging. It's gorgeous. So Susan, tell us a little bit about your thoughts behind Prince of Tides.
Well, I'm sorry it was a hassle because I have been a gallerist for a long time, so I tried to make it as easy as possible. I really understand why packing peanuts are a pain in the tookie, and so I tried to make it as easy as possible. And just put that paper on the wall, put the nails in, rip the paper off. Sometimes it sounds easier than it is, I guess, but I'm glad to see it all together. And it's hard to show and not if you don't see it in person because it's oil and cold wax, which has a lot of texture and the colors are kind of ethereal. So their reflection's a little off. But through the time of COVID, I've been painting on these panels that all sort of connect like a puzzle, and they can be rearranged and changed around a little bit. And I write some sort of intention or something in the panels before I start. This was one of the first ones I did inspired by Pat Conroy. It will not be my last, and I have many in the works right now because I have a huge crush on Pat Conroy. I love all of his stories, and I'm trying to do, what he does about writing my stories and dissecting my life and recapturing it in paint and shapes and colors versus words. And he talks about memory. A couple of you mentioned memory in your quotes, and the one I have is, I could bear the memory, but I could not bear the music that made the memory such a killing thing. And when that song comes on the radio and takes you back somewhere, and like a lot of Pat Conroy writings, they lure you in with all this pretty and marsh and music, and then he punches you right in the heart. And that's how I felt about a lot of his work and his writing, and as I'm constructing and deconstructing memories and trying to make sense out of all of them, this is what came out, specifically his stories of the Prince of Tides, because that's a tough one.
Well, it really does look spectacular on the wall, and even in the individual ones, when we were putting them up one by one, each of them speaks themselves too. So it's just a very wonderful piece.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have Kate Kennedy, our president of our director or whatever of our chapter, with Lords of Discipline, one of her famous aminals.
Well, they're my critics. I started doing the animals just for fun because I needed company in my studio late at night, and my family got tired of me waking them up at 2 a.m. to show them a painting that I was working on. And that's probably something that happens with all artists and all writers, is that when you do something that you really like at the moment, you want to share it. So I started painting all different kinds of critters. And this is one that when I was doing my research on Pat Conroy and reading Lords of Discipline and looking at the boo and or the bear, I saw my goat and I said, it's the boo. missing the cigar. So we all have characters in our life that inspire us and are our critics and our worst nightmares and our best friends. And so I thought I would bring in both the humor and the seriousness, that we all have a boo in our life.
I'm kidding.
Thank you, Kate. All right, now this series here for the next 5 pictures are the second picture that one of the winners had. Some of them had a second picture in. So Joanna also had a second picture, and this was Nathan. Just give a little brief thing about Nathan, Joanna.
The thing that inspired me with this gentleman and Pat Conroy, Pat Conroy's quote, "The most powerful words in English are tell me a story." And when I saw the sign Once Upon a Time, I thought about the comfort of Once Upon a Time for children and how Nathan used this to entice people to assist him with food or money and to tell us, hey, wait a minute, I have a story. You know, I am not a bum, and you may not be comfortable going by me. You may not be comfortable dealing with me as a homeless individual, but I had a home. I have a story. Everybody has a story. Some make us uncomfortable, you know, some make us nervous, some instill fear. Pat Conroy was brilliant at doing exactly what Susan Irish just said. He entices us and then boom, hits you in the heart. And I felt that with Nathan. He was just a wonderful, wonderful man who had a home, got into financial difficulty. He actually wrote for Marvel Comics. Interesting fellow.
Thank you, Joanna. Fran, this is your second one, 2012-03-12.
This piece was part of a 30-piece series where I did a painting a day. And they were exercises. They were loosening up exercises, but just the way that always happens with my work, when I do something like that, I realized at the end of 30 days, I had something really special that I wanted to continue on with. So I dated these pieces as the titles because I wanted that real specific connection to that moment in time. And that is the tie-in to Pat Conroy's work here. He writes so beautifully in his descriptive passages about those moments. And I keep going back to The Prince of Tides because that's my favorite, and I've read it many, many times. But there are lyrical passages in that book that are so about a moment in time. So that's where the connection comes in to this piece. This piece is about one specific moment in my studio, and his passages in his novels have such beautiful eloquent passages that transport you to a specific place and time.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Juliana, her second one is called A Low Country Heart.
Well, again, I didn't get over to Defusky, but there was a passage in The Water is Wide just after he described this house that he was living in there, Viola's house. And he was thinking about all the people on the island were fishermen and about the tides, and they only fish when the tides are right. Otherwise, they weren't there at all. And this is sort of him looking out at the tides. And let's see, I have the passages here about that. And when the water grew sluggish, relinquished its swiftness, rested against the marshes, and waited for the moon to assert its power again, then the people would appear with their shrimp and poles. The fish abided by these rules. If there were no fish, then there were no people, and I would sit on the dock alone with the osprey's skeleton behind me. So I was thinking of his depression and his sadness, so I let the paint run. So even though it's a sunset and usually brings happiness, here it's also sad. Going back to the other piece that was the top of the drum, there was another piece in The Water is Wide that a lot of that paintings from that series, will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by. So when the children were singing the spiritual, then I said, it all does tie together, doesn't it? So it was really fun rereading The Water is Wide and putting this all together. And the last comment, you mentioned Luann LaRoche and her other gallery. The other gallery on Hilton Head is in southern part of Hilton Head near Sea Pine Circle, and it's called Camellias.
Oh, okay.
So she often shows her work there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That actually sounds exactly familiar when you said that, but I totally drew a blank. Thank you, Juliana. Okay, this last one I believe is mine, and this is called Misty Morning because it was a misty morning, but it was the lone tree that intrigued me. Its branches are bare, but it's still alive. It's sturdy, it's strong, but it's alone. But with that light coming through, that gave it some power. And I think that's kind of the way Pat Conroy's books are. Many of his characters are strong but alone, but there's always this light that somehow shines in that is this light for the future. So that was it for me. And
that's lovely.
That was it. And thank you. Now don't go off yet. I've got 2 more slides. So thank you all who participated in Inspirational Journey. Pick up your artwork on December 1st from 11 to 2. And then please remember that we still have our big sister exhibit, the Inspirational Journey, just the same thing through Thanksgiving weekend at the Vendu Hotel. You see the list below. There's 28 artists from NAWA South Carolina, NAWA Florida, and NAWA Massachusetts chapter who were juried into the exhibit. It was opened up to all 3 chapters. Ours was only opened up to members of our chapter. So many of you are in both and we're juried into both. So that's certainly a big congratulations. And I hope you all get over there between now and Thanksgiving and get to see the Vendu. If you don't, here's the screenshot of when you go onto nawasc.org. Very easy, you can't forget that, nawasc.org. This is what you see, and you can click into our Earth to Sky exhibit, our inspirational small chapters, or the Vendu one that Kate was talking about earlier that has the very intriguing and amazing 360-degree view from right inside the Vendu Hotel. So there is, if you see on the bottom, it says open now, click to enter on each of those. Well, all you have to do is click on that and voila, you get it. It's right there. So
when is the, I'm sorry, is there going to be a reception like this?
There was, no, I mean, they had
a small one
about a week ago for the Vendu one.
Right. But we're going to do another cocktail hour because they usually do a cocktail hour every day at 4 at the Vendu for everybody to tour the exhibit. But we've decided that we would do one and do it live so people could Zoom to the cocktail hour. So I'll be scheduling that and we'll start tying in the panel discussions soon. So you'll get notifications of that stuff this weekend.
Great.
Thank Kate, you. Can I, or Sandy, can I ask a question about the Vendu? I didn't apply for that. My question is it the same format, that the same purpose behind it?
Yes, yes, Joan, it's still entitled Inspirational Journey. Ours had the subtitle small chapters because it had to be 12 by 12, but the Inspirational Journey one at the Vendu is exactly the same. People had to give their inspiration from Pat Conroy. I don't know how it's set up. I don't know if it's all written in a book in the beginning. I know it's not on the cards next to it, but
it is now.
It is, okay, it is. That's how it's set up. So yes, it's exactly the same, but the pieces are much larger.
So do you see a parallel between the inspiration in those photos, I mean those images versus ours?
Kate? you answer that?
They're both inspired by Pat Conroy's writing and his life and community service. So everybody, we did this as the same themes, but we did not have a size limitation at the venue. So we have pieces at the venue that are up to 48 by 60. And it was also open to the other chapters.
To answer Joan's question too, though, is there some similarities? I think there's some interesting takes, and it's worth it to see the show in person. But if you have to just see the virtual one and see what connections you make, and maybe it'd be interesting to know if any of the paintings inspired you to read a different book, or learn something different. There was a few that you really got to study them, and they'll resonate. I think I thought it was all of them were lovely shows.
Right. It sounds as if we ought to have a cocktail over that.
Okay, and our last slide is I'm introducing the upcoming exhibit, January 20th, 21. It's called Treasures of Our Coastal State, January 20th through February 28th, so through the entire month of February, at the Coastal Discovery Museum, as Natalie said, on Hilton Head. And so the Smarter entry will open up in another couple weeks for that, sometime in early November. And so please start looking at painting some great treasures of our coastal state. The board talked about the different topics to do, and Fran Gardner, who's on our board and is the professor at USC Lancaster, mentioned to us that, this is the whole state. Let's not just have treasures of the coast, do it treasures of our coastal state. So any picture, any painting from our state would be applicable, and that was fine with the Coastal Discovery Museum. So it's treasures of our coastal state. So you're really open to a lot of interesting options there, and hopefully you'll all submit some pictures in it. I believe it's going to be $25 for the first 2 entries and $5 for each additional one. So come up with some good entries, and hopefully you'll all get juried into this show also.
Unlimited size?
God, there is, but I think it was 28 by 36. It's certainly not going to be a
24 by 36,
12 by 12.
probably.
Excuse me?
Okay.
I think it was 24 by 36.
Okay.
But, we'll be sending out the prospectus.
Yeah.
And all the details will be in that. So that should answer out all your questions. And that stuff's being put together now.
Yeah, this was just a little teaser for you to end on a high note.
It's a good one.
And that's all I have to say. I'm going to stop my share. And I see all of you in front of me again. Hopefully there was nobody that didn't get in, but if not, we are recording this, so we'll be able to have this available also. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really well done.
Thank you, Sandy. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Sandy.
All right, Jonathan, thank you very much for attending. And Natalie, if you're still here. Jonathan, I have a whole bunch of videos for you for your website that we've put together as well.
Fantastic. We'll happily share those with Conroy fans everywhere. I'm so thrilled to be part of this partnership. Thank you all for what you do.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
We had some nice chats too. Most of them were thanking us for the exhibit, and even Patty Robbins from California said she enjoyed it very much. So I'm just looking at all the different chats that everyone posted. So all positive. So thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you. Could the board stay on for 1 minute?
Sure.